when you can let go of all that stuff, there's so much more that you're capable of. Whatever shows up, that's truth. There's no knowledge more than self-knowledge.
Welcome to the Strength Connection Podcast, a show to share stories, insights, and experiences in strength, physically, mentally, and spiritually. I'm Michael Krukowski, host of the Strength Connection, and I'm so grateful that you can join me today. So in these episodes, I connect with some of the most inspiring and successful individuals to chop it up and learn from true life experiences that have helped them become who they are, the strongest versions of themselves. One of the greatest ways I've always learned the most important lessons is through stories. We all have them, and they make us who we are. So let's dive in. Here we go. So the topic of flow state has been one that's fascinated me over the past few years, both in theory and in practice. So when I came across Tim Bui and the incredible work that he's done, I knew I wanted to speak with him. So Tim Bui is a flow state coach and a martial artist over the past 25 years and has focused his time on mastering meditation and flow state and how we can utilize them practically in our lives to open up our full potential. So I learned so much from this conversation and chatting with Tim. He is wise beyond his years, and if you're looking to level up your mindset, this is one you'll definitely want to listen to. So with that, we'll get right to it. If you like this episode, you like the show, then I'd love to ask for your support and rate and review it wherever you're listening. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You can catch all new episodes that are dropped every single week. All right, thanks so much, guys. Let's get on with the show. Let's make some magic. Tim Bui, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. It's such a pleasure to be on your show and like part of what you're working on. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you doing this. So you are in a field with flow state and really kind of meditation and life performance that I love this topic because it's one of those things I personally love practicing. And I think so many people strive to have more in their life of, but I think there's a lot of misconceptions behind kind of mindset work and flow state and what it is.
Yeah.
And so to have someone like you on to, dive into some of this work, I think is going to be great. So again, appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's dive in.
Yeah. So you had your first real experience with meditation at like 13 years old or so. Tell me about that.
Yeah. I just Googled like how to meditate. I was just curious. My parents raised me as Buddhist, but like not in the meditative aspect, just like reading sutras and chanting and praying and stuff. I wasn't really into that. Nor am I really into that still to this day, but besides the point. Meditating. So I Googled it and then it showed me how to do the Zazen meditation. Very, very simple. It was like a 3-step process. You take an inhale through your nose, you count that as 1. You take an exhale, you count that as 2, you go up to 10, and then you go back to 1 after you go to 10. So it's really meant to just like clarify your mind, but also like hone in your focus. And what was interesting was that did happen. And then I was meditating and
Mm-hmm.
and it was around, I want to say like 4, and it was during the winter time. So it felt like literally like 5 or 15 minutes, but when I was out, it was dark outside. Like when I was out of my meditation, like it was dark outside, and I had this like sublime experience that I don't want to try to use words to explain, but it was just an out of body experience that I had. And I just connected with source. And that's when I realized that as a little kid, as a 12-year-old or whatever, that life is nothing like what I was like raised to believe it was. And I don't think at that time that anybody knew that what it could be or what it was, for me at least. And that was a really isolating experience, but also like really marked the beginning of my trajectory to be like a deep like seeker of like just self-awareness and truth, like from that perspective.
Did this out of body, did it start during the meditation that you did, or did it come like afterwards?
Yeah. So like there's this period. So like I was breathing, right? And then like I was just counting to 10, and then like I started breathing less and less and less and less, like just like micro breaths, just like barely breathing. And then like it came to this point where like the same, like because it was so little and it was like so close to the inhale and exhale that like it was the same time almost. Like it just felt like just a little bit was going out and a little bit was going in. And once I got to this space where I stopped even thinking about that, and like I didn't even feel like I was breathing anymore. And that's when like everything just changed, and I just went into this subliminal space.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've had that experience, but mostly in like a sensory deprivation tank before.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, tell me
Yeah.
about that. Have you
Uh,
already shared that before?
no, it was something I used to do before in the past, and then I just recently did a couple weeks ago, just some transitions and some stuff I
Nice.
wanted to get into. And it's the time when all of a sudden you realize you are breathing so like microscopically, and you can get
Mm-hmm.
into that state. So to do it in just a regular setting like outside was more challenging, but that's what I felt. So I understand it's a very odd experience to try and put into words, but once you
Yeah.
experience and realize you can kind of go into that, then it's a powerful thing that you don't let go. Do you think is that flow state, or is that something different?
I think okay. So anytime so just to define flow for myself personally, like flow is anytime when you're not connected to time or a sense of self. That's pretty much it for me. So if you're outside of that, then you're outside of the constraint of yourself, which means you're not in your own way. And I believe 99% of the time we're in our own way. Like there's just so much stuff that's like I just call it like RAM, right? Like so you just have a certain amount of RAM, you have a certain amount of processing power, you have a certain amount of bandwidth, and a lot of it is just being used up by like baggage, by like limiting beliefs, by like negative emotions that you have about things that you're still holding on to or whatever. And when you can let go of all that stuff, there's so much more that you're capable of. And so it could be, you can experience flow at any time when those two elements are met.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'm going to get into that in a bit. I want to bring it back to this time when you were a kid, though. Once you experienced this, did your meditation practice continue inevitably afterwards, or like what happened afterwards?
I was scared, man. I was like, I was
Yeah.
like, I was like, I don't know if I'm sane, like, I don't know what's going to happen to me because I've never had that experience and I couldn't explain it to me. I can't, I can't tell my parents about it because they're not into meditation. And like, what are the words? How do you describe that? Like, I barely at this age am able to just like describe that experience. Right. And so I can tell my sister, can tell my friends at school, like they just make fun of me. So like, those are things that you care about when you're a kid. Right. So, and then there was a period where I was like, oh, how do you get back there? And I was always trying to get back there, but you can't do it like that either. So, I did luckily like later on when I got like that experience was very traumatic. So it disconnected me from like the matrix basically. I was just like, what is this? Like I can't go to school. Like I don't want to do any of this. And so I got in a lot of trouble. I got expelled eventually in middle school. And my parents sent me off to like this Buddhist monastery, which I didn't really like want to be there, but I did learn how to meditate there. And they taught me a different style of Zen meditation as well. And so I learned like various styles. And so that kept me in the meditation game, so to speak, just like learning other styles. And so to this day, I still meditate. Yeah, to answer your question.
Yeah. Wow. What was it going to like the monastery? Like, with Buddha, what was the difference of that meditation versus the meditation that you experienced first?
Well, I definitely didn't go into that state for a while, but just going into the it's like on top of this mountain with like this $1 million super beautiful view of the Bay Area, and it was just like a pristine place for cultivation. Like every condition was ideal. It was like in the Zen way, like just everything was very simple, and it was just made for you to excel in meditation. So that allowed me to create like a spiritual, like to have this like spiritual container within myself that I can like now take around with me and like, okay, let's expand this, let's sit in this and let's meditate in this. And so like that became like an internal experience that I carry around everywhere as like an anchor for that.
Yeah, it must have been a little bit of a relief to be able to kind of have a container for these thoughts before, because like you said, you kind of had to almost like repress this out of body experience. You couldn't really talk about it with stuff, which especially if you have some experience like that as a young kid, and you do like you think is something wrong with me, like I can't, but
Yeah.
tell this out to anybody. Now it seems like you
Yeah.
kind of found a little bit of a container that you can explore this a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I really until like 2 years ago, I did some like holotropic breath work at a retreat. I didn't realize how traumatic that experience was for me because it was just buried so deep. And then when I did, this, I was at this retreat and I just, it came to me like just like an insight, and I was like, I can't believe like all the pain that I went through as a little kid when I was just so isolated by this experience, and like I was sharing it with everybody there, and like that was a really healing experience. But that only happened like I think like 2 or 3 years ago. So
yeah. So how long were you at the monastery?
2 weeks. And then I was, it was just 2 weeks. I was basically like, they don't really like force you to be there if you don't want to be there. And so like my parents, they try to send me off to like this, the Buddhist boarding school. And I was like, like, I don't really want to be here. They're like, okay, right. Just tell your parents that you're not a good fit. And that's it. So I was like, cool. So, just resumed going back to middle school and getting in trouble.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So you left, so they let you back into middle school?
A different one. Yeah. I went to a different middle school. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And now you're a martial artist as well. I know you practiced that for 25 years. Did that come before all of this, or did you start practicing martial arts later down the line?
Martial arts was first. So I was, did that once I was 7, and it's been almost 3 decades or so. It's been, it's very foundational because like in martial arts, like the philosophy is practiced in the body, like a lot of like, because I study philosophy, like I got a degree in philosophy. So like a lot of like what Western philosophy is like, oh, we have all these ideas and stuff. These are great ideas, but it's like, you guys aren't like living this, like you guys aren't doing this. But martial arts is like the embodiment of these ideas and like how it works in the real world. And so we have all these like high ideas of like presence and mindfulness and meditation and stuff, but like, how does it happen in the real world? Well, like, how does it happen in a fight? Like that's like the most like intense container you can have for how does this work? And so, right. I think like definitely having training in martial arts and like kind of like the background that, supports all that stuff. I mean, I also do like MMA, I also do boxing. So it's not like I'm just like in this like woo mystical stuff, but like I'm really into like just, the art of combat, so to speak. So it's all really, I think, grounded in practicality, and that's the basis of these ancient traditions.
Yeah. That's where I think some of the confusion or sometimes maybe the misconception about meditation or flow state comes into it, of how is this a practical thing that you can go into life? I mean, I can see it maybe a little bit easier bridge to get into physical training, but when we start talking about things like building businesses or improving relationships and stuff like that, it could almost be like, how can this apply to all this? When I've done a lot of personal work on myself, I understand it, but still it's, something that you got to constantly work on there. So, I mean, with meditation, you had a pretty big experience early on from there. Most people, it seems like, is that a little bit more of an outlier? Like, have you talked to a lot of people?
100%. That's an outlier.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, I think people can try their whole life and probably not have an experience like that. I'm not saying that like, there's anything great about that experience. Honestly, like everything comes down to discipline and consistency and commitment, right? Like that experience could be a huge tangent from the thing that you should actually be doing is focusing on consistency, right? And like I had this big experience, and now I'm scared. Now I'm like trying to look for it. Now I'm trying to get it. And like, you can't get it by trying to get it. Like that's not how it works, right? So now I'm just like misled on this like path of like trying to recreate something that can't be recreated because it just happens, right? You can't just force something like that to happen. So I think, blessing and curse, everything is just like that. You just have to appreciate both sides at the same point.
Right. So where do you think people either get a misconception or get wrong about meditation? Is it how they practice it? Is it about, are they trying to force different thoughts? Like, what are the struggles that you've seen with people you work with of getting into a meditation practice?
Yeah, I think like having expectations, really, like, and the meditation is like, for me, I believe it's just like a time and a space that you create for yourself to be there for yourself. Like, I think for me, like simplifying what spirituality is like, you're there for yourself. Like there's more of you there for yourself than you not being there for yourself. And for me, that means like I feel love like for myself, like because I create that space that I can feel love for myself. And because I have that, and because I know that that's real and that exists within me, I have something that I can share with other people, and it comes from that place. And like when you don't have that, it's hard to like give anything because you're like consumed by all the things that like are basically, bottlenecking you from being like how you want to show up, like how you want to be loved and how you want to be valued. But all those things have to come from you first. So like just creating the time for you to like generate that, to like sit with that, to like, I mean, the main thing that like meditation is medicine, right? So like that is the medicine for the like the spirit, for the body, the mind, like all of that. Like it's you tapping like the parasympathetic system, right? So like when you're in your parasympathetic system, that's when all the magic happens. It's not happening when you're working out. Yeah, you're working out, you're tearing your muscle fibers, but like you don't get stronger by doing that. You get stronger when you recover, right? So tapping into your parasympathetic system is so key to like getting results. But I think we're so like in this mode of like getting things done and like, you know, that hustle and that grind, but like you need to like sharpen the axe so that you can have like, you can just slice through life like butter. So
Right.
that's how I look at it.
I love that. It is. It's because sometimes it's, especially if we're like in that very deep, like masculine energy, like that order energy, we can bring that right to meditation when actually it seems like the practice of meditation is the exact opposite. You're treating it like this, like to do thing, like, all right, I'm setting up this time for meditation and getting everything set. So like you're making it this chore when in reality, like that's the last thing to do is actually just, I love what you said there, Tim, just it's taking time for yourself to appreciate yourself, you know,
Yeah.
and how easily it is to just let your mind just wander and we start just, you know, criticizing ourselves or just, you know, just berating ourselves of why can't I clear my mind? Why can't I get this down? And, you know, then we just get into this, but it's a tough thing to get through, but it's there. It seems like it comes like relatively quickly. For me, it takes about like 10, 15 minutes or so to actually feel even a moment of getting in there. Is there a specific time frame that you meditate yourself, or do you recommend that people kind of take for this specific practice?
Yeah, I think like first thing in the morning before, you know, you have like making time for that, right? So like some people, they wake up and they got to do something right away. So like making time so that you don't have to do something right away and you can just be with yourself. And like maybe there's just like 20 minutes. And I think 20 minutes is like the perfect minimal effective dose. And people usually recommend like, you know, do 2 hours every morning. Some people that's not possible. Like even if you make time, that means you're sleeping like 3 hours a day or something. So I think 20 minutes is like the minimal effective dose to just be able to tap into yourself. And like maybe you get a message from yourself like, yo, you're amazing, or like, yo, like you should take care of this today, whatever this thing is, or what, like something from your spirit will speak to you, maybe, or not. Or maybe it's just like the time that you need to process everything that's been happening because you're so busy, because you only have 20 minutes. And so like whatever shows up, that's truth, because there's nothing that anybody can say to tell you that that's not true, but there is something within you that resonates that truth. And when you start honing into what that truth is, you can hear it in other places, like when in conversation or on TV or whatever. And like, you're like, oh, there's something there for me. And you can hone in on that. And there's something called a reticular activating system within our brain and how we focus on things. Right. And so like when we hone into that, then we can hone into like basically the automated programming of like what our filters are, so that we can get the things that we need out of life that serve the purpose that we're here to do, or whatever, you know, the job is to be done.
Yeah. Is there some benefit that you've seen to like journaling right afterwards, or like kind of like reviewing your meditation practices? Or do you think like it's just adding more stuff to the mix? Is it best just to set your 20-minute time? And if it's good for the day, great. If you didn't get any revelations or anything like that, that's fine too. But just the practice is the most important piece.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money. The practice is the most important piece. If you feel called to write, then definitely do that. And, you know, at that point, it's pretty idiosyncratic, right? Like some people, they just journal every day and they're great at it. I'm not one of those people, but sometimes there's something that comes and I'll just like type it out on my phone, or, you know, in a journal or something like that. And I'll look back on those things like, oh, like wow, you're pretty smart, Tim. Like, I don't know that I could write that today, but, you know, like I'm just shocked by some of these thoughts that I have. And that's cool. You know, that's a cool experience, but I don't think it's like absolutely necessary. But if you feel called to, then I think definitely honor that as part of your practice.
It is. It's funny. Journaling's an interesting thing because I've promoted as much as I can because it's helped for me. I mean, the things that work for you, right? You want to speak it out on top of a mountain, but I know some people that they can keep the thoughts in their head and then they just go and then it just flows, you know, from there. You know, personally, I found like sometimes going in with a question or so into like a meditation practice, if you want to dive into it, that's what I've done with like the the float tank is like you go in with a couple specific questions that you want to dive into, and oftentimes just kind of the revelation, comes, but sometimes it comes afterward. It's weird. The mind
That's
is
the reticular activating system.
Oh man, it's such a weird thing. I think it's one of those things that it's like, it's hard to, we want to like pinpoint it down. It's just like, oh, like, okay, like 8 to 12 reps is hypertrophy training. We know that. We've seen the studies on it. If you do this, it's going to grow your muscles. With meditation, it's like, it's harder to find the specific data down. So that like structure and order part of our brain wants to find that, when in reality, it seems more individualistic than almost anything.
Yeah. There's a book called like Altered Traits. It's like a very science-based book. Study. Some people are into that, and so like it can give you like this sort of the parameters to have meditation, to where like you're having neuroplasticity and all those other key benefits that is hyped by meditation. So like if you're a parameters person, you can definitely check out that book. But I think like you're right. It is really personal, and the reason why I think it goes back to, this is a time for you, and this is a time for you to figure out what makes you tick. And that's what's going to program those little binary codes within your reticular activating system, so that you can find those things more easily. And so like, if there's anything to meditation, it's really just, there's no knowledge more than self-knowledge. Like self-knowledge is power. That's like Greek mythology, right? It's just like, to know yourself is to know everything. So meditation is a portal for that.
Yeah. The best knowledge is self-knowledge. I love that. So what do you think of, have you ever used the meditation apps at all? Or like, what's your thoughts on those as a way to meditate?
Yeah, one of the apps that I like using is, I used before, I think it was called, I don't use it anymore. It's called, one of the apps that I use right now is called Instant Timer. It's just a simple like timer, like 9-minute timer I just use. And I usually go like way longer than 9 minutes, but it's just to get me started, I guess, just to hear that little gong, and I'm like, okay, it's time.
Okay. So there's no guide or anything like that to it?
No, but there is one that's really good. I think it's called, I don't know the name. I'm so sorry. I'm not prepared. I think it's called like breath app or something, breathing, or I can't, but it's really cool, because I'll tell you about it, and then I can give you it later, and you can provide in the show notes if you're interested. But
sure.
Really quick rundown is like, it's like a choose your own journey type of thing. And like it takes you through like a series of like different types of meditation, like techniques, like maybe 10 or 20 or whatever you want to go through. And like and then they'll ask you like questions, like feedback, like how was it during this meditation? How did you like it? What were your experiences? And you answer those things, and then it'll give you different prompts based on what you answered. So based on your last meditation session, you said, like you were having trouble with this technique or whatever, so we're going to try it like this. And so it's really cool.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it's like really customized. And I think that's just like super cool. So yeah, I'll definitely share that with you later.
I love that you mentioned that, Tim, because everybody can debate like the micro on stuff so much, when it's like, this is the best way. This is the best way. We've heard it in meditation. We've heard it in training. You hear it a million times in nutrition. This is the best way to eat versus this. When it's like, it's kind of, we're leaving out like the macro of just doing it is the best thing of practice, whether you use an app or not. Like if it's just getting you going and just get started. I used Headspace for a long time.
Oh, that's a good one too.
With it, which was a good one. Then I used, Sam Harris has a great app called Waking Up, which I used as well. And what it did is it kind of gets you into that momentum a little bit.
It's
like maybe you can get deeper into a state if you're just quiet by yourself. Kind of, I think it's a good skill to have, of being able to just sit with yourself in silence. But if you need to get into the groove of it, it's like if an app gets you on that path, then I think that's great. Like it's sometimes we like to argue about what's the best way. Like the best way is probably the one that you're going to do most effectively.
Yes, I totally believe that. It's the one that you're going to do, because you need the experience points. That's all it comes down to. Like, well, how are we going to get those experience points? You like just do it so that you get them. And then the more that you get, the better you're going to get at it. And that's it.
Yeah. So I want to get into flow state with you again. You had a great articulation of the definition of it. Is it teachable to get into flow state?
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think, addressing what you said earlier about like misconceptions, a lot of people, have this misconception that you need like 10,000 hours of mastery to get into flow. And I think that makes sense in certain contexts. Like, we'll go back to fighting. That's an easy one, right? Like, there's no way if you're in like a fight and you're in survival state or fight or flight that you're going to be in flow state. It's just not possible. But if you have so much technical proficiency, so much mastery of being in that situation, then sure, you can have flow state because you won't be in fight or flight. So like one of the requirements is that you're not in fight or flight. And so that 10,000 hours, if it has to do with you stressing out, then yeah, you're not going to get there. But if you have that 10,000 hours, you're probably not going to stress out. So I think like that's where it's at. I think the most ubiquitous way to talk about flow is play. Play is so basic, so easy. And if you look at kids, they're just in flow. Like they don't know what time lunchtime is or when to come home for dinner because they're in flow state. And so like, if you look at kids playing tag, for instance, like they're so in the moment, they're so present, like you go or I go, like, like they're, so it happens like that fast. And we all have those experiences that we can tap into. And there's a somatic awareness that we have that's ingrained into our autonomic nervous system that tells us, what we're feeling. Like when you're hungry, you're feeling that way, right? So like every state that you have, every energetic state that you have, including flow, there is a feeling that's associated with that. There's an interoceptive ability that you can gain by taking note of what's happening at that time. And that can be used as a trigger to get you back there. So that's one of the ways that you can train to be back in flow. And we're all experts at it from just being little kids, just running around.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I had a conversation I've referenced numerous times with a gentleman, Sifu Singh, who he told a story on the last podcast that I did about being in a fight with these gang members came to a group that he was with. They they thought somebody was in this crew that wasn't there. And all of a sudden he said he entered that flow state. It was like flow or die. But now thinking he had the experience of fighting for numerous times before, and it's almost kind of like a weird out of body experience at that time. And you're just kind of moving without thinking, and that it's kind of almost an aspect of play. It's crazy situation that's happening there, but you just kind of get into it where you're just not even thinking about the next move or not. It's so funny you said that with play, because I think as adults, that's something we miss that so much.
That's why we need flow. We need to bring back flow so we can play more. We just need to play more. Like we just need to hang out. We need to play. We need to have a good time. We're so serious. We need to get stuff done and stuff. But like really, like if we can play and do that, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, because it's interesting. Because I think like just on a kind of naive mind, you would think, to get into flow state, you need to go to like a meditative practice or so. But it seems like no, if you're just maybe in movement or just creative play or even probably dance or something.
Yes,
that's the way to get into flow state.
Yes. Dance is a great way. Like you could just like put on some beats or whatever and just like lose yourself. Like just lose yourself, allow your body to move to the music. That's it. So like now tap into that. Like where is that happening in your body? And like just getting familiar with that, because you can bring that to work. You can bring that to like so many other aspects of your life and like bring dimensions of creativity that you have not connected before into those zones that have been kind of sterile of those things. So
yeah. I love that. Yeah. Bishop Barron had a speech I heard once about seeing a dog getting a tennis ball in the ocean. And he's just like grabbing a tennis ball, the thing's half hanging off his face. And he's like, he doesn't care how he feels. Or how he looks. He's just completely in the moment. And he said, that's the essence of humility, which is the greatest gift that we can have, is be humble. So it seems like humility is very close to being in flow state.
What's one of the books that Steve Jobs referenced the most was the Beginner's Mind, and that's a Buddhist principle as well. It's just like we're all kindergartners here, so let's not like be so serious, like let's not all like, this this way is the best, or I'm the best, or like like we're all just learning. Like to know, it's like you're gonna say that today, and like next year you're gonna be like, this way is the best, but like what happens in that way, right? So it's like like let's be real here. Like nobody knows what we're doing. We're just trying to figure it out. So let's all just be real about that.
Yeah. So when you're working with people, when someone comes to you and they're looking to increase their potential, really tap into these things, they haven't really maybe meditated before, really don't understand, flow state too well. How do you help somebody get into a practice of finding their flow?
There's a couple of ways. So one of the ways to get into flow is like what I mentioned to you earlier from an interoceptive experience. So we can anchor those in through like NLP or like through using the subconscious mind, subconscious work. Another way is I can set up we can set up parameters. So like let's say for instance you want to be better at flowing in like you're a music producer or something I just did earlier today. I was just creating I'm writing a book right now. So perfect example for flow, work, productivity, everything. So that is an example where okay, so to get into flow, you need to like clear space for that, right? Just like a meditation, really. And all this comes from meditation. Like all this comes from yoga, union with mind, body, spirit, right? So that is flow. And one of the things that I'll set up is like, what is my intention right now? How long do I want to have this intention for? Like, what is this container? I'm going to create this container. Like, there's going to be a 30-minute or a 3-hour. Let's say it's going to be a 3-hour container. My intention is to do X, Y, Z. My emotional state that I'm going to bring into this is going to be this. And the things that I'm not going to do that typically distract me within this 3-hour period during this time of day, I will not do. I'll write this out right now. And these are the things that I will do. And now I have set clear parameters on what's going to happen. I've taken the things, I've removed the elements of things that will take me out of flow. And that is really important because, as soon as you check your phone or something, that it could take you like 15 minutes to get back into flow, or you might never get back into it again. And so that happens. And so just being like setting up these commitments that you're going to honor within these parameters to allow you the best chance to access flow is one of the ways that you could do it.
So eliminating distraction. So elimination before adding is really the first step.
Yeah. Creating space. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. So it's a huge thing there. Like we're so ready to add stuff into our day when the best thing we could do is just eliminate the distractions from ourselves.
Music is, the beauty of music is the empty space between notes, right? And we don't pay attention to that, but that's what makes music hit, like the beat drop or like that emotional movement in that classical piece is all from like those empty spaces. And, there's signs in the music sheets in the notes. They're like, this is just a one beat of nothing. And that's kind of like what you're creating for yourself. It's just this one beat of space.
Yeah. Have people come to you at all and expressed almost like some nervousness about like when they get into flow state? Because I can assume if you're not into that a lot, or if you haven't experienced it much, it can be a little bit of an overwhelming feeling.
No, not really, because usually when you're in flow, it's actually a pretty positive experience. It's not like that crazy meditation experience I had that was just like, completely overwhelming. It can be really just like getting lost in the thing that you're doing. And so a lot of the times when people experience that, it's something that they're passionate about. So we can talk about like tag again, right? Like you're a little kid, you're not like passionate about tag, but you're passionate about playing. And so like losing yourself in that activity in itself is very fulfilling. So when people are in flow, usually there's a sense of like fulfillment. And also depending on like if you're doing a very physical thing like playing tag, there are also some neurochemicals coming out. There's like one called anandamide, which is like 100 times more powerful than morphine, right? So like there's like really powerful chemicals that are happening. There's like adrenaline or norepinephrine, dopamine. There's all these things that are happening because you're aroused. And like that arousal times like your objective makes it a really good experience to have. And so some people, like you can have it from this meditative aspect, or you can have it from like snowboarding, for instance, right? Like, or something really extreme where like all these, or like a fight or whatever, all these things are happening at once and you just gotta silence all the voices, like, or die basically, right? And so like, and then your body will just do what it needs to do. And so there's those two extremes, and then there's everything in between that you can create, but those are the easiest ways to imagine it. And usually if you're, having a great time, snowboarding or doing something extreme like that, you're not thinking about, anything other than what you're doing. So that's what makes it fulfilling.
Yeah, that's great. That's the reframing that I need, because I think I've misconstrued the flow state with that kind of deep out of body, almost meditation experience. I had that in the flow tank recently, where all of a sudden had some very deep visuals, kind of that experience. I mean, you get into a point where you don't feel the water anymore, so you feel like you're floating. And the first time it happened, I almost like snapped myself out of it, because it's an act of letting go. It's kind of an act of faith and I almost think like, oh, that's in flow state. No, it's not. It's something completely different. Flow is actually when you're in a different state where it's like everything just feels like it's easy and it's just free from there. So,
yes. There's different levels to flow. There's like 5. So like what you experience could be a spiritual flow, which is like you may not be ready for that. So that maybe that's why you jump out of it. But like there's mental, social could be like you're having, like right now we're having a really good conversation. I'm not even thinking about like what time it is or anything, like we're just going, right? But you can see social in like when you're watching like an NBA game, or like those guys are like, they're thinking like synchronized swimming, like they're just going, right? Yeah. And so that's social flow. There's physical flow, right? Just like we talked about earlier, which is like sports, or like primal flow, that kind of like just movement practices. There's emotional flow, right? Just like channeling that like emotional energy within you. And then there's also the spiritual flow, like what you may have experienced, or what I may have experienced in an out of body experience is another sense of flow. But it's grounded within our ability to hold that space for ourselves. And the spiritual flow one's kind of a difficult one, but
it is. It's a little, it's deeper. Yeah, it gets into some stuff. Do you think it's easier to find flow state, or kind of build this experience up by doing something like physical training, like when you're actually moving your body?
There's just different types of people, right? There's the kinesthetic types of people, and they'll tell you that's the way. And I think there's like the really heady people who are like maybe musicians and things like that. And, movement doesn't really do anything for them. But when they get in front of a piano and they just play a few notes, and then they play a rhythm, and then it goes into like this whole thing, and then they're in flow. So, another way of calling flow is like being in the zone, right? And so like that's pretty ubiquitous among artists, musicians, and ball players too. So it just really depends on what your modality is. But the easiest way is just whatever it feels like play to you, or you're passionate about. Those are the nexus points to get into it, and you've already been there. So just sussing that out.
Yeah. So with people you've worked with of kind of like untapping this, what are the struggles that people can continuously feel with? Is it kind of keeping a closed mind to this? Like, because gets pretty deep into it. Maybe these are maybe some things that people haven't thought of or really got deep into for maybe their whole life. Do you see a lot of pushback at all, or a lot of like hesitation with people of getting into these practices?
Not so much. I think usually it's something that people are really like. So like there's 2 types of people that I work with. One type of person is they're like burnout, and like they're not connected to their purpose. Maybe they're misaligned. And those are words that I would use because I'm what we would call solution aware. But for them, maybe they're successful, but they don't feel successful on some why? Like they have all the money that they're married, and all this stuff, but like why? And it's because like there's no play in their life. There's no flow in their life. And so like all this energy is stagnant, and it's just like stagnant energy creates, these states of anxiety or depression that are hard to move. Right. So, they want to get out of that space. And then there's other kind of people who, they're doing well and they want to do even better. And so like they want to get out of that space too. So mostly people who come to me are driven to come to like, they're already open. Like, what are the solutions? I've been praying. I've been reading every book. I have to talk to people, and like nothing's helping. Like, is this going to help? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, let's see how well we vibe, because that's how deep we can go. Like if you and we vibe, we can have like an amazing conversation, and that's how this podcast can work. Right. But if we don't vibe, and then we're like, I don't really trust this guy or whatever, then it's just how we have weird vibes. Right. And nobody's going to want to listen to that. So it comes down to that. And I think the thing that gets in most people's way is that we have these like automatic negative thoughts, or like these things that are just like snap us out. Like, all of a sudden you feel like you're not safe. Like all of a sudden you have this experience like in a float tank, or when I was in meditation or whatever. And it's like, oh, this is beyond my comfort zone, and it snaps you out of it. Right. And it can happen just like, you have a phone call or something. Like I have a phone call in the middle of this, takes us out of our flow, and you're like, oh, that's rude. And all this stuff. Right. And so like, we're not vibing anymore. And so like, there's things that can take you out. The most common thing is just automatic negative thoughts, critical thoughts. Those things will just like eat at you, and they'll take away your flow.
Yeah. That's a hard one to get over for people, right? Because The negative thoughts is weird because we're almost kind of wired to it, right? It's like we're built for
Yeah.
survival. It's like if
Yeah.
you can hear 99 positive things about you, but you hear one negative thing and you act and it feels like a threat, you're going to harp on that over and over again.
That's where the magic happens. That's why I love my work, is because we use NLP. We use timeline power. We use techniques that allow you to access your subconscious mind where all these things are stored, and relieve yourself of these things that create these conditions of open loops where you're continuously having these thoughts that you've had during years of formation that have come from your parents or come from moments you're embarrassed or whatever, and they're just lingering. They're waiting for you to be, to acknowledge them. And like, you can do that through meditation. You can do that through a lot of things, cognitive behavioral therapy and like EMDR or like, various things. For me, like I can sit with somebody for 6 weeks and we can knock out like pretty much all of them, especially the ones that are like in the area of life that you want to work on, your relationship or like your business, your career, or like whatever. Like we can definitely knock out whatever's in that realm. And those are not things that you'll experience anymore. In its place, you'll have empowering thoughts. You'll have self-affirming thoughts instead, because you don't have the negativity anymore.
It's powerful. That's powerful.
Yeah.
So many people need to hear this. So I want to ask you about goal setting a little bit, because I think
I love this.
Yeah, it is. And I think I guess the question I would say is, where do you think people go wrong with setting goals? I think this is an important topic to dive into.
Yeah, a lot of people have written books on this, and I'll just give my personal take.
Yeah.
There's this idea of like systems, not goals. So that I think that's one. And I think my personal thing is like goals are a byproduct of who you've become to get there. So who do you have to become? What do you have to become? What's the difference between that and you right now that makes it so easy that that's just a byproduct of what you do? Like, I'm amazing. I'm great. I'm inspiring. Oh, okay. Like, well, how is that just like, how is that so natural for you? Like what's the difference between like this goal that you have of being this great, amazing, champion or whatever? Like, what's the difference? Like, what's the difference in mindset? What are the things that just make it natural for you to be able to do that? And when you can like really identify what those things are, write them out, spend time with that, and those are the things that excite you, then you'll naturally move towards that goal, and that goal will be easy. So like the thing is, most people get wrong with goals is they make it really hard. They think like, classic ones like to make a lot of money, it's going to take money or it's going to take hard work. It's like, no, not really. Like it's as hard as you want to make it. And like, let's just make it easy. Why don't you just make it easy? And so like one of the ways that I look at that, like what's the reframe for that is just like, how do you make it so that it's effortless for you to have this thing? That's what you should be shooting for, not the thing itself.
Yeah, that's it. It is. There's this conception of things have to be hard. You have to sacrifice everything else in order to get here. And it's a hard thing to overcome, for a lot of people, because you look at a lot of times I think we go to the external, right? It's like, who's done this before? What did they have to do? And then you put, but you don't know the experiences that they went through or what they've done. It's like going back. This is where I've had conversations with people about goal setting and the struggle with it, because I think we immediately say an external goal and then we go right to the action plan. Okay, I want to drop 30 pounds. Okay, we go right to the treadmill or we go right to a workout and we start doing that. Not actually to asking the questions about why behind it and actually getting internal and connecting to it. And that might take another 10 minutes. It might take another 30 minutes or so, but that's really like laying the foundation of why is this goal actually important to you?
Yes, because like without that, it's going to take discipline. It's going to take willpower, and those things are finite. You only have so much like ability to wake up at 6 or 5 o'clock in the morning to do your 1 hour workout, and then you're going to miss a day, and then you're going to feel bad about it. Then you're going to miss another day because you felt bad about the other day. And then like, it's just going to be this struggle, and it doesn't have to be like, because like you just made it difficult on yourself by thinking that like you need to make this thing happen, when it's like, not really. Like you just need to make it so that it's easy for you to make it happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. So what's your focus right now? What's the next big steps that you're aiming for?
Well, I'm writing this book. I want to make flow ubiquitous. So right now I'm focused on writing this book for content creators, because, you have to be very specific about who you want to help, especially if they're going to read this book, they need to feel like it's for them. And I know a lot of content creators who, have lots of success, yet they go to this phase of burnout, and it's just really normal, right? Because like any if you want to be prolific, you have to do a lot of work. And part of doing a lot of work is that you're going to feel burnout. But then with the burnout comes a doubt, and then like, what's the right move? What's the wrong move? And then you're trying everything and then nothing's working, and then you lose confidence. You can't show up on the camera. You can't show up and create work. So like, that's a thing that happens. And there's so many people that are experiencing that. And that's just like one aspect. So writing this book, and it's just like really just going to help people tap back into that sense of play, into that sense of confidence, into that sense of joy, fulfillment that comes from doing that thing that you love to do, because that's why people watch you. People watch you because you enjoy doing it, not because you're stressed about like how to get the views, what the analytics are, what the CTR is, all that stuff. Nobody cares about that. And so, but you've made it about that at this point. So that's what I'm working on right now, is just this book. I'm also working on building out my company. I wanted to go global. I want flow to be ubiquitous. Like, I think that like the thing that holds us back, like as human beings, is being able to flow, is being able to communicate. To be like, to collaborate, to create a space of safety and trust. Like, if you cannot create that, you and I cannot sit here and together and like collaborate on this thing that we're creating. And like, the more of us can collaborate, the more problems we can solve, like the happier, like the more value we're going to put into the economy, into like people, and like, they're going to be able to like afford more things. It's just like, that's how value is created. Right. So, that's basically what, what's that guy who wrote the book, The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith or something?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what he wrote about. Like, it's just like, capitalism is not a zero-sum game. People have been led to believe that like some people are rich and some people are poor, and the more rich people, then the more poor people. But no, like the blueprint of which our economy is written off of was from him. And one of the things he said is like, the more successful people there are, the more successful people there can be, because there's going to be more money. So like, the only thing that gets in the way of that, I think for me personally, that I believe is that like, people don't trust each other. They don't feel safety. And so I think all that comes as a basis of just not being connected within ourselves. And I think flow is the excellent nexus point to get us all there and to get out of our own way.
I do. I think you have a beautiful argument on it. I mean, it's really, it's that, that devil, angel devil of abundance versus scarcity, right? It's like, if you have that scarcity mindset, then you think it's a finite amount of happiness and resources that are available. And if some have it, it means other people can have it from there. That's why I love talking about strength, because strength is an abundance thing. The stronger one person gets, the stronger it's going to flow over into everybody else that they work with. So I think you're right on. I mean, with flow, I forget there was some data that I was reading about of Steffi Graf. I'm going to butcher it there, but essentially, like, she was so good at tennis, not because she was willing to work so hard, but because she loved it so much. So not only is she going to work harder than you, but it's not even going to feel like work to her because she loves it so much. And it's
that's the way.
Yeah. So you find that, perfect spot right there of, anything that's worth, doing of value is going to take some time. It's going to take effort and work. But if you can get into a flow state of it and you practice this, then it's going to be as easy as possible. I love that what you said there is how to make this as effortless and easy as possible.
Yes. That's like, if I can get that message out, let's just get it out. Like, let's just make it easy. Like, why don't we?
Oh, I love this. Tim, dude, you're awesome. This has been absolutely great. I always like to end with this one question to my guests about their personal definition. So what would be your personal definition of being the strongest version of yourself?
I think like serving people, seeing that I'm serving people. Like, I don't, I have this beginner's mind that I've adopted, where it's like, I don't need to be seen as like, I don't know, like the leader or the best or the top. I just want to help people. And like, that's the thing that excites me the most, is when like I can open up this door, or like I can unlock your full potential on something. Like some of my favorite stories are just, helping clients with this massive doubt that they've had. And then now they can provide for their family. And now they're like, they have so much joy that they're inspired to give a phone call out to like various friends and me and other people, and share their story and share like what's going on well with them, and like, and inspiring other people to do the same, like trying to reach out and offer support. And I think like, if I can create that, then I can create this ripple effect, at least, that other people can create more inspiration and more support and more value for other people. And I think really like that's all I want to do with my life. So like that would be the perfect version of myself.
It's beautiful, man. Awesome. So Tim, if people want to follow up on everything that you're doing, you want to check out your work, what's the best place that we can direct them?
My Instagram right now, my website's kind of wonky, but usually I'm like, yeah, there's a free 60-second like assessment, which is super helpful for just getting clarity in what would bring you the most joy. But all that stuff is available. All the updates, everything is on my Instagram. So definitely check it out. There's also, I'm building out free resources for people so that they can get into flow. I'm not trying to be like a gatekeeper or anything like secrets of flow or anything. Like I want more people to have it. So like everything that people can have, like I'm going to create like this flow blockers thing that I share with you, like how to create the parameters for flow, all that stuff is going to be on my Instagram. So just give me a follow there and you can stay updated with all the developments.
Awesome. Tim, thank you so much, brother, for speaking with me. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, it was a pleasure connecting with you, man.
Absolutely, man. Listeners, thank you so much. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some great value here. And if you like this episode, please drop a comment and leave us a 5-star rating and review. It does more to build the show than you can imagine. And do not forget to check out and join the Strength Connection Facebook group. In this group, I share the biggest takeaways and lessons from these amazing conversations, as well as training and strength tips for pursuing mastery and fulfillment in life. This group is filled with individuals looking to take full control over their strength, and it's the perfect space to explore new ideas and to share your journey. And you'll also get exclusive access to these Strength Connection Mastery Seminars. It's a deep dive into the physical, mental, and spiritual training that you can begin using immediately. So do not wait, go now. Seriously, go. All right, much love to you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.